You've been told a story about being left unread. It goes like this. They saw your message. They chose not to respond. That choice means something about their interest, their respect, their feelings toward you. And the fact that you can see that they saw it makes the silence louder than any response could have been. That story isn't wrong. It's just incomplete in a way that cost people considerably more than the original silence did. Because what being left on read actually reveals is rarely what the person on the receiving end spends the most time thinking about. What it probably isn't. The first thing worth establishing is what being left on read almost certainly is not. It is not a carefully constructed message. Most people do not open a message, read it, and then make a deliberate decision to leave it unanswered as a statement. That sequence, seen, assessed, rejected, implies a level of intentionality that most unreturned messages simply don't involve. What actually happens, in the overwhelming majority of cases, is something considerably more mundane. Someone opens a message at a moment when they can't respond properly. They intend to come back to it. Life intervenes. The notification disappears. The message slides down the screen. The moment passes. This is not a defense of the behavior. Leaving someone's message unanswered for an extended period, regardless of the reason, communicates something real about priority. But it communicates something about priority, not about a deliberate decision to send a message through silence. The distinction matters because one of them is about you and one of them isn't. What it actually reveals, what being left unread reveals, reliably, consistently, with a clarity that no amount of reassurance can fully obscure, is where you sit in someone's hierarchy of what requires immediate attention. Not where you sit in their feelings, not where you sit in their stated priorities, where you sit in the practical, moment-to-moment allocation of their time and energy. And those two things, stated priority and actual priority, are frequently not the same. This is the information that being left on read provides that is actually worth having. Not they don't like me, but when something has to give, I am what gives. That's a precise piece of information about the structure of a relationship, and it is significantly more useful than any of the narratives that tend to fill the gap between sending a message and receiving no response. What the waiting reveals about you. Here is the part of this conversation that most people would prefer to skip. The content of your thoughts during the period of not receiving a response. The specific story you construct. How quickly it goes to the worst interpretation. How much mental and emotional energy gets allocated to decoding a silence reveals something about you that has nothing to do with the person who didn't respond. It reveals the baseline level of security you bring to relationships. The person with a secure relational foundation sends a message, notices it hasn't been answered, and continues their life. They may feel mildly curious. They may feel slightly annoyed, but they do not spiral. They do not construct elaborate narratives. They do not find themselves checking their phone every 20 minutes for a response that would resolve a tension they themselves generated. The person with an anxious relational foundation sends a message and, in the silence that follows, begins to fill that silence with meaning. Did I say something wrong? Are they angry at me? Have they decided they don't want this anymore? Why is this taking so long? None of these questions are about the message. They are about an older fear. One that predates this conversation, this relationship, this person, that has simply found a new surface to attach itself to. Being left unread doesn't create that fear, it reveals it. And that revelation, uncomfortable as it is more useful information than anything the person's eventual response could provide. The second thing it reveals. There is a second thing that extended silence after a message reveals, and it is about the relationship rather than either person individually. It reveals the current state of the dynamic, specifically, whether the investment in the relationship is roughly symmetrical, because in relationships where both people are genuinely invested, where the connection is a real priority for both sides, messages don't routinely go unanswered for extended periods. Not because both people are always immediately available, but because when you care about someone's experience of the relationship, you don't consistently leave them in uncertainty about whether their communication landed. The pattern of response, not any single instance, but the pattern, is one of the most accurate measures of relational investment that exists. More accurate than what someone says about you. More accurate than how they behave when you're together. More accurate than how they make you feel in the moments when they're fully present. Because the moments of full presence are easy. They cost nothing. Anyone can be warm and engaged and apparently invested when they're in front of you. What someone does with your message when they're away from you, when the interaction is optional, when no one is watching, when the social pressure to perform investment has been removed, that's the accurate reading. What to do with the information? The practical question is, what to do with this information once you have it? And the answer is simpler than most people want it to be. Nothing dramatic. No confrontation, no withdrawal performed as a statement, no carefully crafted follow-up message designed to communicate your feelings about the silence without appearing to communicate your feelings about the silence. Just an accurate update to your internal model of where this relationship actually stands. Not where you want it to stand, not where it stood 3 months ago, where it stands now based on the evidence available. And then, based on that updated model, a quiet, undramatic adjustment to your own investment, not as punishment, not as a strategy, but as an accurate reflection of the current reality. You don't need to match someone's level of investment publicly or dramatically. You simply need to stop investing at a level that the relationship isn't currently returning. That adjustment, made internally, expressed through behavior rather than announcement, is the most effective response to the information that being left on read provides. The question no one asks. There is a question underneath all of this that almost never gets asked directly. Not, why didn't they respond? But, why does not responding feel like this? Because the actual experience of being left on read, the specific quality of the discomfort, the way it expands to fill available mental space, the disproportionate weight it carries relative to the actual stakes involved, is rarely about the message. It is about something that silence activates, something older than this relationship, older than smartphones, older than the concept of read receipts. The primitive, persistent fear that you are not someone worth responding to. That fear is worth examining, not because the person who didn't respond put it there, but because they didn't put it there, and it's there anyway. And that means the work of resolving it has nothing to do with their eventual response. It has to do with you, with what you've decided somewhere underneath all of this about what your message being unanswered means about your value. So here's the question worth sitting with. The next time you send a message and the silence stretches, before you check the phone again, before you construct the story, before you decide what the silence means about them, about you, about the relationship, notice what you feel, not the surface annoyance, the thing underneath it, because that thing is the actual information, not the read receipt, not the silence, the fear that the silence activated in you, and what it tells you about what you still believe, somewhere underneath everything else, about whether you deserve to be answered.